The Red-Headed Surprise is a family-friendly version of the classic Sherlock Holmes story, The Red-Headed League. This version keeps the excitement alive while simplifying character names and making the storyline less intense. We hope you enjoy it. After solving the tricky case of Irene Adler, Sherlock Holmes and John Watson have started catching up more often. One bright morning, Watson is on his way to visit Holmes at their place on Baker Street. When he arrives, he sees Holmes talking with a new client, a man with such bright red hair that is impossible to miss. Watson doesn't want to interrupt, so he thinks about quietly leaving, but Holmes notices him and waves him over. "Watson, come in, I'd like you to hear this," Holmes says. "This is Will, my new client," he continues, introducing the red-haired man. "And this is my good friend and partner John Watson," Holmes tells Will. Will nods and begins to tell Watson his story. "I run a small hardware shop," he explains. "Business is just average, so I was working alone because I couldn't afford an assistant. But about 3 months ago, I got lucky and hired someone for half the usual pay. My assistant, Vince, said he wanted to learn the business and didn't mind working for less. He's been a great help." Will continues. "Vince is very organized and manages the storage area in the basement where we keep all our extra tools and supplies. Since he started, the basement is so tidy I can find anything I need right away." One day, Vince showed me a strange advertisement for a job in something called the Red-Headed League. Vince explained that this league was started by a rich man with red hair to give jobs to other red-headed people, Will says. "He thought I'd be perfect for it with my bright red hair. And the pay was amazing. One day's work there was like making money for 2 or 3 days at my shop." Curious, Will decided to try it out. When he and Vince arrived at the office, it was packed with other men with red hair, all hoping to get the job. However, Vince was able to push through the crowd and right away got to meet with the manager, Duncan, who was also red-haired. Duncan looked at Will's hair and said, "This is the brightest red hair I've ever seen." Then he checked Will's hair to make sure that it was real and hired Will on the spot. Duncan explained the job. Will had to come to the office every day at 10 a.m. to copy words from the dictionary for 4 to 5 hours. On top of that, Will had to bring his own lunch, and except for bathroom breaks, he couldn't leave his desk. If he left early, he'd lose the job. Will was unsure, worried about leaving his shop alone, but Vince promised he'd handle the shop while Will was away, and for 8 weeks, Will earned good money doing the simple job. But then, suddenly, it all changed. "This morning, I arrived at the office and found a note on the door saying the Red-Headed League is closed," Will explains, looking puzzled. "I asked the landlord about it, but he said he had never heard of a Red-Headed League or a person named Duncan." Will was confused and a little afraid as well, so he came straight to Holmes on Baker Street for help. Holmes listens carefully, looking quite interested. He decides to take the case. Then Holmes asks Will some questions about Vince and finds out that Vince only had started working at the shop about a month before the Red-Headed League job became available. With a thoughtful look, Holmes tells Will, "I think I'll have an answer for you in a couple of days."